Thank you, Jaipur Literature Festival, Jaipur Bookmark, Manisha Chaudhary, and all your colleagues. It's a great opportunity for probably the most important topic in publishing, and the weakest and the strongest link in the 4 Ps of marketing is the retailer. And I am relatively the new retailer, the new kid on the block. Because I think everyone here has been associated with books and books publishing and trade longer than me, except Shibani, Sethi, who comes from a different background. We'll talk about that separately. And there was a time when books were the go-to place. They were our cultural hubs. They were our social hubs. That's where the world came together. They were the final link between the author and the reader. Right? And then things suddenly started changing, right? There were changes in technology, there were changes in society, there were changes in culture, right? And there was a time when book reading was so normal, and today, oh, you read books. So I think there's like so much happening. There's such a flux we are in, and where does the retailer stand? When just under 3 years ago, we decided to invest in bookstores, right? And everybody came to me and said, like, who invests in bookstores? And I said, I don't know, but somebody has to, and I will, right? And we started setting up bookstores. They asked, did you do market research? I said, no, if I do market research, I won't be able to set them up. So sometimes you just do it first, and that's been for those of you who know me, that's the story of my life, right? I remember, I think we had a swimming pool in school, so every summer we would take classes. So in KG, I learned a bit of swimming, and in class 1, on the first day of the swimming lessons, I thought I know swimming. Class 1, 6-year-old, I went to the pool day 1, I just ran in and just jumped into the middle of the pool. And if my coach was not keeping an eye on me, I would have drowned and I wouldn't be sitting here, right? So, yeah, so since then I learned, okay, jump into the pool, but have the little inflated tube around you. So stay afloat. And so I think coming back to retail, I think we, as a society, we all need to, work on a few of our relationships. And that's why I always start with a public interest message. If there are 2 relationships that human beings need to work on, it's their relationship with nature and the relationship with books. And I can guarantee you, it's a money-back guarantee. You do this right, and most of your life's problems will go away. When individual problems go away, society's problems will go away. And that is why I always urge everyone, please carry a refillable bottle with you. Please keep refilling it everywhere. Don't use single plastic bottles. It's just a gesture, but it just shapes a lot of our thinking and actions. And I think in the last 3 years, or 3 or 4 years, I probably have opened only 3 or 4 single-use plastic bottles. And hotels like these have refillable stations. You'll find refillable stations at a lot of places now. So that's going a little off topic. The other thing we should always carry is a book. Read a book and don't look at your mobiles, don't look at your iPads and when on the go. And when somebody sees you reading a book, I'm telling you they'll come and take a selfie. Oh, you belong to another era. I want to, And so what's happening is there is when it comes to books and retail, now different societies are looking at them differently. There's the capitalist model, which is followed in the Americas, countries like UK, where it's a free-for-all, right? Anybody can price the books anything, they can do any discounting. It's Amazon versus retailers, nothing personal over here. So it's all business. Yeah, and but there are countries like France, there are countries like Norway, Germany, and other societies which realize the importance of bookstores. They realize the importance of bookstores for multiple reasons. Why? Because they are our cultural outposts, right? France, for example, introduced a policy a few years ago that Amazon will not be allowed to discount books beyond a certain point. I think it's about 5%. They cannot even subsidize shipping. What happened was, in the process, the existing bookstores suddenly became viable. In the process, many more bookstores started coming up, right? And because it was suddenly a profitable business. And when that happened, right, more people took to reading. Because when you are on a high street, when you're walking around, you're in your little market, in your little village or little town, right? You come across a bookshop, out of curiosity you walk in, and suddenly you see an author over there doing signings, and it becomes infectious, right? There are also instances of, including in the UK and France, where the government owns real estate, retail real estate also. Some of it is owned by them, right? And I've read about cases where they said, oh, this market does not have a bookstore, or this market does not have a bookstore which is focused on women writing. So we will allocate it to a bookstore to cater to this need, to this gap, and also give it at a subsidized rent. It's a lower than market rent. Because now somebody will say, oh, but we are living in capitalist times, and why should books get a special treatment? But then again, you get special treatment in pharmaceuticals, right? There's a price control, right? Newspapers get a special treatment. Why? There is newsprint subsidy, right? So why can't books be the same happen to books? And ever since I've entered this industry, I've been urging all the stakeholders. I said, let's all come together. Let's all work on two different levels. At one level, let's urge the government to introduce policies which aid the promotion of books and reading, right? Which also means that there has to be a level playing field. Yeah, we'll come to that later, like, there's this big thing about Amazon discounting because people buy on Amazon, they come to bookstores and they browse the books and they order on Amazon and they get it delivered at a discount and stuff like that. But Amazon also is also doing a service catering to PIN codes where there are no bookstores, right? So where do you kind of balance it out? And at another level, I think all of us need to come together to promote reading in the country. Why? Because no matter what we do, all these marketing ideas, all the bookstores, Amazon versus retailers, blah, 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 right? The problem is, we are not reading enough. Let's all work together, all stakeholders come together, right, and have interventions. And let's not, the common thing is, oh, young people should read. Why should only young people read? The young should read, their parents should read, their grandparents should read, everybody should read. We should go to residential complexes, we should go to corporates, we should go to schools and promote books. Right? We should tell corporates that don't give another box of Son Papadi and Kaju on Diwali. Right? Give the book. Right? Right? Like, why can't every corporate introduce a policy that every month, every employee will get a book? Buy a book subscription. Kunzum does that. Ad break. So, anyway. So the thing is, we need to, at every level, if we bring in interventions, we create awareness. I speak to a lot of school principals and teachers. I said, look, reading was so important for us. The library period was mandatory. We had to read a book, right? And we had to read the book before we returned it the following week. Why can't those things be introduced? So there are like so many things, and directly, indirectly, it eventually comes back to retail, right? So I think we'll do a quick roundup we'll ask everyone to give their take on the value of retail and their experiences. Everybody gets 2 minutes. And I'll start with Aditi, because Aditi, I think you have a certain legacy. Your family has a legacy. So tell me, how is number one, the retail landscape changed over the years, number one? And number two, going forward, how do you see the importance of retail as part of a societal landscape?
Thank you, Ajay ji. I come from a background where right after my MBA, the first assignment I was given was to go sell 25 copies of Hindi's top titles in Connaught Place, the heart of New Delhi. I thought, ये तो मेरी degree का मजाक है लेकिन I thought, okay, 25 copies of a certain book, known authors, big authors, and in Connaught Place, it should not be a problem. So Connaught Place is a place where books were sold in 2013 at 8.5 places. I say half because it was a tapri place which kept original books, because there are many tapri places in CP which don't have, I mean, which have the plagiarized versions. So I made a list of them, and I carried 2 runners with me from the office that had the books. And we went on each bookstore with the books on shoulders, and of course, the team was with me. So when I entered the bookstores and I told them कि सर ये किताबें, पहले दिन तो मैं बड़ी पीपीटी वीपीटी बना के भी गई थी. How stupid. So so then I realized that no, they don't have the time. Booksellers don't have the time to look at your PPTs. They are very busy, and most of them are on floor themselves selling the books, independent bookstores. So that was a learning that PPTs don't work. So from first 2 shops, we gathered that this is trash. Second, third bookstore we went, I told them my full name. So after hearing my second name, they offered me water. Thank you. I'm very grateful to Jain Book Depot, and they were very kind. But they were busy, and they told me that they'll meet me in half an hour. And then we left from the bookstore. And gradually, by the end of the day, we went to 5 bookstores making no sales. And most of them said that aap rakh dijiye. Usually the publisher bookseller relationship works on the SOR, sales or return basis. किताब बिकेगी तो पैसे हो जाएंगे, नहीं तो बाकी आपको किताबें वापस दे दी जाएंगी. They said that SOR पे आप रख दीजिए, we'll see. One of the bookstores who were very kind, so I told them कि आप अगर shelf space दे दें, the author is a very, very important Bollywood lyricist, and I thought कि, so they said हाँ कुछ English में नहीं है क्या इनका? So I said I'm a Hindi publisher, so that didn't happen. So that was a very disappointing day of my life, and I thought something is not working, and are we in a totally parallel reality that 20 minutes away from Daryaganj into Connaught Place, and these books are not finding places. But then, cut to 2025, we see not only the independent bookstores, but the corporate bookstores like W.H. Smith, Crossword, Oxford Bookstore, Kunzum, giving rich amount of space to Hindi, I can speak for Hindi, in their bookshelves, on the top shelves. What has changed over a period of time? What has changed is, number one, the Indian languages have come of their own. They have also taken a light flight. The baggage of being a legacy language, the language of the masses, the language, I mean, the language of the masses is a badge of honor, but I found that through 90s, this became a kind of burden that the literature that was written in Indian languages, especially for Hindi, somehow missed the general readers from the purview. So a lot has happened on the publishing front also. We've worked on our book covers, we worked on our communication program. We are there on social media talking to our readers every day, making them aware where the books are available. The books are in JLF, the books are in Indore Lit Chalk, the books are in Sahitya Academy Literature Festival, the books are at Kunzum, the books are at Crossword. So these things are helping. At the same time, the problem, because I have 4 bookstores of my own, so I can tell you, if I keep in that per square centimeter space a mobile charger or stationery or a purse or a bag or sweets, they will sell faster and will give me more profit compared to in that square centimeter space if I keep a book. You see, whatever we are talking in this room, the moment you step out, there is a very harsh reality of the real world, where the rents, the property prices, they are very prohibitive. So it used to be a very heartbreaking and a very bitter experience when in 2010, 11, 12, we used to see half of the legacy bookstores turn into a stationery store, or half of the space of the legacy bookstores rented out to a cloth shop. And we used to feel they don't have heart for books, what are they doing? And when the reality hits, you understand that it is the practicality of life. So when Ajayji says that some intervention from government is needed, I think it is desperately needed to safeguard, especially the independent bookselling in the country, because the market is in a different direction, and the book economy is in a completely different direction. So I rest my case here.
So, Govind, like you have your family has a absolutely brilliant case study. You know how publishing, marketing, retail, how it all works, how you've expanded beyond the shores of Kerala, right? And in fact, I was talking to another publisher yesterday, I think from Andhra Pradesh or Tamil Nadu, and they said down south, most people still prefer to buy from bookstores and not so much online, right? Is there like a reason for that? But more importantly, how did you successfully set up your retail chain? How do you make it profitable? Like, what are the learnings others can have from that? And do you sell toys?
We don't sell toys. I mean, there are a few high street shops where there's stationery, and there's some that sells pens and stuff. But I think, three shops have like board games and stuff. But I don't think we've gone to Hot Wheels and Barbie and all that stuff. And I hope we don't have to. Quickly to retrace on your first question is, with the bookshops, I think my dad basically got us into being a retailer in 1991. Before that, when my grandfather basically started the company in 1974, we had 5 bookshops, which again, he bought from another publisher who was not doing so well. And this was a legacy publisher that was publishing M.T. Vasudevan Nair and all those authors. So for 20 years or so, he had bought those 5 bookshops, which were mostly our shops. But in 1991, my father started the whole retail thing. And from the outside, if you're completely new to us, we would look like a chain bookshop. Whereas in fact, when you go to our shop in Kochi at Convent Junction, which is right between two big college campuses, it's a place of its own. The manager, Mr. Madhu, has been with us much longer than my father has been with the company. But he has a database of readers, in his head that exactly knows who's buying what, which author certain people prefer. And if you go up to him for a light chat, he can navigate you through our backlist and front list, kind of trying to suggest you books. And just like how Spotify, if you skip a song, he understands, okay, this guy doesn't like these sort of books, let me go that way. No, but he has it. And I think we've been lucky enough to have really good managers, if I want to call them that. Our shop in Talasheri, which is the seaside part of Kannur, very small shop. It's one of our first shops. It's helmed by this person called Biju, who's not even from that town. Has basically the sort of author connect in Kerala that no editor can actually boast of. Like, he can literally call up N. Mugundan and ask when the next book is coming up, whereas our editor would feel a little more distant in terms of asking that. But we have that network. So you go to Trivandrum, where our shop is right next to the secretariat. Our manager there runs a WhatsApp group called Biblio, which he started because he wanted to sort of promote the sort of rarer books that we had in our collection. If you look at the members in that group, we have everybody from the former finance minister of Kerala to people there. And I didn't know this group had it until one day. He basically messaged our shop. It was the day before Pongal when he decided that the shop had to be closed by 6. And there was a message in that group where the finance minister said, I went to the shop, it was closed, I wanted to get a book. But I think they all operate as distinct niches, although it's all called DC Books. So the shops aren't necessarily a chain, although they are all called DC Books. But I think the other part of it is that, and a lot goes to the reading public out there back home. We are still fiction heavy. people talk about the finer things in books, which, when I now see the sort of marketing that comes along with a lot of English books, it sort of pushes book reading as a very utilitarian thing, that when you read it, you need to derive something out of it. That reading for pleasure is of a lesser thing than actually reading to gain some knowledge or practically arming yourself with that whole get 1% better every day with that atomic habit sort of narrative. And I think that, maybe it works. It's very easy to communicate those sort of stuff. But then I think it serves, it sort of reduces books to a very practical thing that you do, much like reading a textbook. So we're still fiction heavy, and for that matter, we can experiment with certain types of books. And because we're sort of integrated as a publisher and a retailer, there's a certain synergy that operates between us in the editorial right down to the shop. And that is one thing I think we have a certain upper hand in terms of marketing our books. Because in some sense, marketing sort of dovetails the whole retail operation that we have. So we have 53 shops at this point. There's 3 that are going to open, and they're mostly in Kerala. But we're in a big town like Kochi, but we're equally in a small town, temple town right outside of Kochi called Tripunithara, which we opened last year. Small shop. It's about 960 square feet. It's got a decent collection. Malayalam books mostly. But we're still averaging somewhere around 25,000 rupees of sales a day. But there's people that are walking in on a daily basis. A weekend it might go up to, the highest it's gone up to is a 40K. But it's sustainable. And one of our senior managers, he had a team of 4 people. One of them were moved to that shop, so now that person's helming the shop. But this sort of training and moving people around is required. You can't just hire somebody who has a background in retail of electronics to just take up a shop. They may understand the economics and the bottom line of it, but I don't think book selling ends there.
Do you do any discounting?
Depends on the book, depends on the season. There are, Onam and all those times, which NRI season as we call it, sometime from early June till late August. There's an inflow of all our diaspora from the Middle East. At that point, it is pretty much something they demand. But then the ticket values are so high. They're buying 6,000, 7,000 rupees a book at single go. It's so notorious that, some of our airport shop managers are very well connected to these buyers. And these guys WhatsApp the airport shop manager saying, I'll return on this date. Here's a list of books. Can you have it at the airport bookshop? Because then it doesn't add to their luggage.
Yeah, so from time to time, it's okay. But Harshil, when you were at Crossword, did you discount books across the board?
Yes, we used to. So first of all, thanks Ajay. Hello all the panelists and the wonderful audience. And about discounting, yes, we used to give discounts at time and again. So we used to follow a pattern called as a marketing calendar. So we have a set of things like say Diwali, the seasons, for example. So you used to plan like well in advance, almost maybe a year or 6 months in advance. And you sort of know, like say May 19th, it's Ruskin Bond's birthday. Children's Day falls on 14th November. Okay, so these peculiar days where you can utilize it and you can turn things around, like 26th Jan, 15th August, and which are the new arrivals which are coming from the publishers. So the relationship between the publishers and the retailers is also very important. So for example, places like JLF, if like there's an upcoming international author coming up with his book, of course you could invite him or her to the fest and speak, and then you could do like a book tour. Yeah. So also...
No, I'm going to come back to you because there's a reason. We'll just stop here. And Mohit, do you discount books?
No.
Okay. Pulkit, do you discount books?
I think we are a marketplace, firstly. Like this is a retailer sort of conference, but Amazon caters to 10,000 plus sellers who choose their own pricing. So if I have to put it like that.
Okay. The reason why I brought this up, this whole discounting thing, is for 2 reasons. Right? One, I don't know how you guys sleep at night with the loss leader pricing, with every day, some bookseller or some bookshop, jumping off the cliff, right? But on a more serious note, is discounting, why are books and publishing the only industry which is creating art on a daily basis, but we are discounting our own art. Why are we so hell-bent on discounting? And because one of the things that I keep again arguing with publishers and other stakeholders, there's discounting happening across the board. And publishers may say, okay, once the book leaves our warehouse, we are going to get only X amount, and then the marketplace can decide what price they want to sell at. But what also happens is, for example, if nobody's discounting, right, my personal take is consumers will still buy the books. But when discounting is happening, they'll go to the place where they get the books cheapest and most convenient in most cases. But what's happening is it's sucking money out of the system, right? If customers are expecting discounts and that discounting happens, if that discounting did not happen, what would happen to that money? That money would be invested in marketing, whether it's invested in marketing by the retailer, by the publisher, by the author, that money could give a better living wage to authors. We could have better literature. Better literature means more people reading books. So I think it becomes like a little kind of a vicious cycle. And personally, have you looked into the experience of, or have there been internal case studies at Amazon? Like when countries like France and Germany and Norway, they have curtailed your discounting, right? And what's the internal thinking at Amazon? Does it bother you guys, or you say, okay, it's business as usual, and because you are the wolf or the bad wolf the thing is bad wolf for retailers, but you are a delight for customers. So it's like a little tricky one.
Ajay, I think I'll sort of break it down into multiple parts. Firstly, the size of the industry and the opportunity that we are talking about is so huge. And thereby, I don't think there's a single wolf which is taking away that market to that extent. We have, as a country, a lot of scope to read more. Amazon is doing its own share bit. We were just listening to, let's say, Manav Call, right? And I'm saying 10,000 customers based out of South India orders book of Manav Call from Amazon because we supply that, right? So there is that aspect to the reality of Amazon. Similarly, a girl buying Intermezzo based out of Manipur, we do end up, supplying to them. On pricing, as I said, right? I know the idea is that only pricing lead to more consumer acquisition. But if you look at Amazon Flywheel, a lot of our focus is on building the largest selection of books in the country and giving it at the best convenience to consumers, right? In that space of things. And I know we can look at the entire value chain of the ecosystem of how margin structures work, right? And how money is being flowed into it. But the idea is consumers do look for affordable deals, etc. also, including the likes of Crossword, including the likes of W.H. Smith. So there are all of those use cases around it. But at the same time, I'm saying, if you would today tell me that the average selling price of selling a book from 400 can be lifted to 1,000, let's have a chat on that, right? Because we want to sell more expensive books. We want to sell more box sets. We want consumers to buy 3 books together. We also want to make money. We want authors to make money. We want publishers to make money. So principally, there's no idea to do it endlessly, right? And the fact is that even in countries like, let's say, France that we are talking about, the regulatory oversight to anything is a two-way sword, right? Once it comes with the idea of regulating prices, and once you get into that kind of space, it's anyone's guess how it will play out, right? Maybe in the short term, we would be saying that it is beneficial, but the data is almost tricky, right? To understand how that is gaining the system, etc. Amazon does offer a marketplace where a lot of sellers who even can't afford to be in JLF can sell books, right? And that is also a reality of the factor of what we kind of live with. And we are talking of the ability of a marketplace to sell a 100 rupee regional Tamil title to the ability of a marketplace to sell a Tintin box at 8,000 rupees, right? So thereby, if you're able to sort of build those consumers, then you can have a long-term impact on the industry at large, which should be positive, and that's my personal point of view. I'm saying our ability, for example, to sell books is also dependent on the ability of this room to sell books, right? And we are more dependent on this than probably anyone else in the room.
So ever since I got into this business, I've lost count of the number of people who've come up to me and said, oh, even I would have loved to open a bookstore, right? But, and I say, okay, it's not an easy business to be. And I said, please set up a bookstore, right? But like obviously then this the question comes about what's the business model that works, right? In this day and age of big is beautiful, my observation is there are like a lot of boutique stores, 53 boutique stores with you guys, right, which are kind of standalone stores, modest size compared to some of the bigger stores. We've had stores like Bhai Sons and Fakir Chand and the bookshop in Delhi, right? They're like, by any standards, they're like small shops, right? Carpet area, what, 450, 470 square feet, but they do terrific turnover. And Mohit, your family's been running a bookstore in Jaipur, right? And very successfully. And not only is there like that, and you've actually grown beyond your bookstore, beyond that physical outlet, right? So what's the business model that you would recommend for anybody in this room and beyond? If they want to invest in a bookstore and make it profitable, what would you tell them?
So I was just getting scared before you invited me for the conversation. Much like the industry of publishing, what is happening is, and much like what I witnessed in the conversation, amidst the talk of retail and business, it jumps up here and there, and the bookseller gets ignored. So I was wondering if he's even going to ask me something. Well, coming to that,
will be the case.
I read this beautiful line under Jaipur Bookmark. It says, where books mean business. So I come from a space which is where books mean life to me. I have spent more than 30 years of my life in a small room, as he said, which is luckily full of books for me. And the strength that a bookseller has is the experiences that we see in the bookshop every day. I mean, what we are witnessing here at the JLF, it's a lifestyle for me. Getting authors, talking to readers, and celebrating. I mean, talking to retail customers, for example. It's such a beautiful experience in itself. So one thing which I have learned and which I consider my strength, for example, I have seen a cardiac surgeon break down at my bookshop when we talked about a book called Being Mortal. I have seen an income tax commissioner with her 3-year-old granddaughter and literally jumping around. The kind of persona that a commissioner of income tax or finance person has. It is totally different when somebody like that comes to a bookstore. So I think what we are as an industry missing out here is the essence of an independent bookshop which has to be carried on. I'm amazed at the way you mentioned 53 bookstores and each having its own character. Hats off to you for maintaining that, because I've been wondering, as a bookseller, I have seen, I'm also doing Madhu's job, I'm also doing Ajay's job. I'm literally, one of the sessions I did, I was in a session with a Bollywood celebrity on the stage. There were 1,000 people in the audience. And I didn't have the support staff. So immediately getting off from that stage, I went to the books corner and I was again hand selling all the books. It was such a beautiful and humbling experience, because being a third generation also, I have the legacy where I get to talk about these day-to-day experiences with my father. And when he says that, stay true to who you are. Now, it's also a limelight center-oriented business where if you are in conversation with somebody who sounds intellectual, who is intellectual, and actually authored so many books, it tends to get into your head. But that's when my father says that, stay true to who you are. The books are the real heroes. And that essence, I think, has to come. And one more thing which I actually want to ask everybody, the industry is struggling. I mean, this is specifically to you, Harish sir. How do we create, booksellers? Because what our industry lacks is the strength and the passion, because it's not a lucrative job. It's very hard. You look people, you come here, you see all the limelight. But the hard work that goes behind that, carrying those boxes, it breaks your back. So that is one thing which we have to understand and, train, make this cool enough for youngsters to join in. That's about it for now, but I'll jump in eventually.
Yeah. I think this human resource issue, I think it's a global issue. The particular disadvantage a country like India has is those willing to work hard on the shop floor. Unfortunately, they come from social and educational backgrounds, right? Where it's very difficult for them to pick up on knowledge of books. And those who come with better degrees, better education, more awareness, right? For them, working in a retail outlet is hard work, right? So I think, I think you have a very, like, I think somebody in Italy, I'm forgetting their name, they run a school to train retailers in books, right? We met them in Sharjah, I think, right? So, okay, this is your model, and Harshil, you've been part of the big business model, right? But the big business model, so what is the role of the big business model in an industry where hand selling, personal recommendations are important, and you hear a lot of criticism from readers about, say, a brand like Crossword. They say that, the knowledge of the sales people are very poor. Oh, it's not a bookstore, it's just selling bestsellers. It's about toys, it's about stationery and other stuff. Unfortunately, we don't have anybody from Crossword here. So this is not an allegation. This is like just generally some of the things you hear. And you've been a part of the system, right? So what are the pluses and the minuses of a chain like Crossword, and for that matter, any big business in retail?
Sure. So thanks for getting back to me. I thought I would not get the chance to speak coming all the way from Mumbai. And so I would just start with, दो पंक्तियाँ राजेश जोशी जी की. कुछ लोग थे, कुछ लोगों का उल्लेख था, कुछ लोगों का उल्लेख था जिनके ओहदे थे, कुछ लोगों का उल्लेख था जिनके ओहदे थे, बाकी सब इत्यादि थे. Okay, so the thing is, why I'm stating these lines, so I no more represent, I used to work for Crossword and for 13 long years, and as you rightly said, you require passion to do it. I had started as a management trainee, the last I left was marketing head, and while you see, people, they would easily switch off the job for maybe a penny more, or, and as that's a great idea what you yourself gave. Like, we need to build up centers of education where we could train, because there would be a formal training for like how you have it for literature and other courses, like how you can become a book retailer. Okay, and also why I quoted that, I myself was planning to shift from one industry or maybe, switch on. And I realized while I went on to the job portals, there was no mention of publishing. I'm like, I spent my almost 8-10 years and there is no mention, or हमारा क्या बोलते हैं, वजूद ही नहीं है. So that is so disturbing. Like, you gave all your life to something, building it up, you created your own brand, but then while you are planning to switch your own roles, there is no identity which is there. Okay, and I would like to end it up, which I feel is the solution as well. Again, few lines coming from a poet, Arjun Sisodia. There's a beautiful couplet which I sort of read or heard. है युद्ध नहीं जिनके जीवन में, है युद्ध नहीं जिनके जीवन में, वो भी बड़े अभागी होंगे, या प्रण को तोड़ा होगा, या रण से भागे होंगे. Okay, so I feel we all people sitting here, we have a battlefield, where we all, with our own cavalries and infantries and whatever we have. And there was a beautiful poem by Rudyard Kipling as well, if, and you can worn out and make out with your own hands and tools, which you could do, and whatever resources we have. So if we together can build up or create rather something which is at the grassroots level. And that's the reason I'm working very closely with schools. Like, for example, I take authors to school. There are skits which are performed on the books of the authors. Okay, where I, of course, also do a literature fest where we do a week before, author of the week. So the kids get to interact with the authors who are going to speak at the festivals. So these are small, small things, and we need to build it up. People are reading, or in the countries abroad, because they have been taught right at the, very early stage, like ECA, Early Child Learning Associations, or associations like these, or these schools. Like the library lecture, I was invited as the guest of honor 2 days before coming here. And I was talking to the principal of really renowned school. So she said, one library lecture, we couldn't do anything. And so I said, that's the point. You have to ensure you create change in that library where you interact with the kids and make it so interactive, like they pick up books rather than the mobile phones. So there are apps like Freedom, you storytelling like Jumbaya. So you kind to first introduce initially to the kids in form of storytelling, narrating, where they enjoy. Once they enjoy, they will definitely pick it up. And while, as it said, if you pick up, children imitate you. So if we have a book in hand, they will take a book in hand rather than a mobile in hand. So that's what I would like to end my speech with. Thanks, Ajay.
Thank you. Yeah. No, we were going to ask you questions. And before I come to Shibani, a quick, honest raise of hands. How many of you are willing to take a pledge that at least once a month you will visit a brick and mortar bookstore and pick up a book? Okay, so now when you go back, make somebody else take that pledge. So, Shibani, the reason why I've come to you last is because all of us are because you are. And I'll tell you why. Because you represent the readers, right? You have a community of thousands and thousands of ladies who read books, and of course their families, the Gurgaon Moms Books Community or Club, as you prefer to call it. And so tell me, you've been doing a lot of events, especially in the last year and a half, and doing a lot of these events at bookstores like Kunzum and other places where the communities come together, right? How are you seeing the role of the bookstore in one kind of improving the culture of reading? And what's been your experience taking your community to bookstores and holding these events, getting them to meet authors? How does that all fuel interest in books and in turn take up sales and readership?
Hi, good morning. Actually, before I start, I'd like to thank Manisha and Ajay for giving me this opportunity. I've been coming to the JLF for the last 10 years, but this is really the first time that I'm sitting on the other side. And when I got this opportunity to speak amidst retailers, I was wondering what I was doing here. Until actually Harshil just spoke, and I figured that there is so much that we bring to the table. So I'll take a second, actually not a second, a couple of seconds to tell you what I do, because it should be jaw-dropping before I actually answer what Ajay is asking me. I represent a community of 42,000 women. It's called Gurgaon Moms. And I have to say that I lead the books community, and I have very successfully, in the last 2 years, I have been in this space for 2 years, taken the readership up to 35%. So for me, that is a big thing. So whilst people say that reading is taking a back seat and it's really not progressing, I do tend to disagree a bit. And I will tell you why. I think what we're still working on, or we assume that, actually reading has become a decision fatigue. It's reached a level where the number of books that are getting printed vis-a-vis what we are reading is just a small percentile. We always tend to look at bestsellers, and I'm guilty of that as well, and I was telling somebody that the other day. So this year, we vowed that we will look at the lesser-known authors, first-time writers, maybe Indian authors more instead of our Westerners, obviously because we've read a lot of that. But I think from a Gurgaon Moms and a reading space perspective, it is imperative, and I know that we've taken reading from just a solitary experience to a more engaged and a social experience. I host events every single month, clockwork. It's like clockwork, okay? And I launch 3 authors a month. Now imagine if I'm launching 3 authors a month, and I've been doing this for 2 years. How many authors are you actually reading? So my point, therefore, is that there is decision fatigue. However, and obviously what also consumes a lot of our time is instant gratification through media, social media. I mean, while there are books available at the blink of, you can read it through social media, through various other mediums, but your Netflix and your Other OTT channels take up a lot of space and time and your mind space, really. Also, why I'm quoting this before I answer this question is we've very recently started something called a screen club in Gurgaon Moms. So I have a book club, which I lead, and there is a screen club, which we started 2 months ago. And I'm not surprised at the results. When I started or took over the book club, I used to get about 9 to 15 people in the book space. The screen club started 2 months ago, and the first time audience was 50 alone. And the second time, it went up to 150. So what is it really saying? It's saying that people find it easier to discuss what they watch vis-a-vis what they read. But while I'm saying that, I'm also saying that in the book club, I have had the opportunity to because I host so many events and I host authors on ground, I've had an opportunity to convert event marketing into event marketing into experience reading. Because the moment I have visitors or guests or an audience coming to experience a conversation, I know for a fact that they will come again and again and again, and then eventually they will pick up a book and walk around. And I have been able to. I told you, I've taken it up to 35%. 42,000 is the size of this community. There is 90% engagement, and it is something that I'm very, very proud to be associated with. Now, coming to Ajay's question, I think what we've successfully also done is we partnered with bookstores so that it becomes a more sensorial experience. Rather than just going into a bookstore and hoping that people will pick up books, I host a lot of events at bookstores. I host a lot of events at large clubs, the DLF, the Palms Club, and there is a reason I do that. They have members who may not be readers, but they know that we are hosting events. And what happens as a result of which is that they actually end up attending those events, and I've actually been able to add those members as my book club members, also resulting in, instant gratification in some sense. So I don't know if I've answered your question, Ajay, but I think that for us, brick and mortar stores mean a lot. They add a lot of value, and I know that reading is not suffering or books are not selling because there is discounting, at least in my belief, because we are readers, are not selling because there's discounting and there is, people have stopped reading. I think people are reading. There is decision fatigue. There are far too many books which are getting printed, and I think we only run or go after best-selling books because those are ones which are easier. Like I said, every month we're looking at, tell me what is the rating of the book before we actually pick it up for our monthly book reads, which now changes. We've changed it in January 2025. We're reading far lesser known authors or first-time authors. So I think as a community, as Gurgaon Moms, and as a reading community, if we work together with the brick and mortar stores, there's a lot of value that we can bring to the brick and mortar stores. And I don't know if discounting is really the only thing that puts reading down. So yeah, I hope I've answered that question. Yeah.
So quick question. All these, I think, I don't know how many you've done, over 100, 150 engagements you've done in the last 2 years.
Yes.
For a moment, think that none of these happen in a bookstore. They all happen in clubs or pubs or coffee shops or other places other than bookstores. Would the quantum and the quality of engagement within the community, right, have been any different?
Well, actually, you must realize that all these people who are members of clubs are also people who visit bookstores. See, I'll give you an example. First, let me tell you the success factor, and I have been dying to say this for the longest time when everybody was speaking, and when Harshil actually spoke, Harshil, I really did enjoy what you said, because a lot of what I wanted to say is what you've actually communicated. The success of any business, whether it's a store, whether it's a club, whether it's a book club or a book community, is actually or works on these 5 C's, okay? And I have worked very hard to get here. I've hosted about 150 authors in the last 2 years. It's creativity. So if you're not creative with how you're going to be positioning, because talking to an author every single month can be quite monotonous, not so much for me as much as for the audience. Why would you want to keep coming for the same conversation each time? So I have to be creative in the way I take the authors on and discuss whatever their books are. Second is consistency. For me, consistency, and when I say for me, it is the success of this huge community that we're running. Consistency, and like I said, it's clockwork. Every single month, you are not going to get results if you're not consistent. The third, of course, is contact, because that is when you start using your leverage, your network. The fourth is chemistry, because if you don't get along with those people, then you don't get anywhere, and therefore you have to be very active in the space. And 5 is keeping with whatever you've committed. Which is really not overcommitting and under-delivering. You're keeping to your credibility. And let me tell you, every single club that I have initiated a conversation with has turned out to an aspiring, whether he was a non-reader, aspiring reader, wanting to read, but lazy, decision fatigues, etc., have gone to a bookstore to pick up a book. May not be dozens of them, could be one of them, but I know that we've now converted a solitary experience into a social interaction and a social experience, and it's really worked very well. So everybody does go to a bookstore. Like I said, they may not be picking up hordes of them, but they will certainly pick up books. They may not pick up a book, they may read it on a Kindle, but I know from a book club perspective, I've created the readers, and 35% is a large number.
So while we continue the conversation, we can also make it interactive. If any of the panelists or anybody from the audience has a question, okay, we'll make it, it'll be interactive. Hi, Harish.
I have no question, but I just want to...
Maybe we'll give you a mic so everyone can...
I have no question, but I only have an observation and some thanks to convey. I am an author, and on behalf of, I think, many authors like me, I would just like to thank all of you who run bookstores for the wonderful, wonderful work that you do in taking books to all our readers. We authors would not exist without your bookstores. Thank you.
Okay, the lady in the middle, please introduce yourself.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for a wonderful talk. My name is Mukti. I'm a published author myself. I have a question for retailers and booksellers first, do you accept self-published authors? And if yes, what is the process? Like, do the authors approach you directly? And how can they get a small space on your shelves?
So I'll quickly take that, and then I'll ask the others if they want to add to that. If you want to see a puppy face, sit in a bookstore all day, and at least one author will walk in with that little face, please keep my books and make me a bestseller, right? Because I'm an author myself, so I know that feeling. So anyone who comes to me, I say, look, my store has 35,000 books. It's going to go up to 60,000 in the next few days, right? Adding one more book is not going to be the difficult part. That's the easy part. It can become 60,001. The tough part is, how will we ensure somebody picks it up? Right? Because, okay, randomly somebody's browsing, they may pick it up. That's like a very, a chance in a 60,000. But who's doing the promotions? Who's creating the awareness? Who's directing traffic? And that's the job of the publisher and the author, and not the job of the retailer. In fact, day before yesterday at one of the panels, there was a little powwow, a fun powwow, where the retailers were kind of, the onus of books not selling enough was put on the retailer. And I stood up in defense and said, look, retailers are only a part of one of the P's of the 4 P's of marketing, and we only cater to a demand that publishers and authors create. We are just a channel, right? Yeah, we do stuff, we do promotions, we do our own stuff, we do our own marketing, but we cannot be responsible for any authors or any publishers doing well. Yeah, so please, we are happy to keep your book. We can do it on an experimental basis, and but then you also have to do something, and your publishers have to do something, so somebody comes and picks it up. Yeah, anybody wants to add to that?
One thing, as a retailer for so many years, I would recommend. I meet a lot of authors, much like everybody here. A small insight that Mr. Chandramouli Venkatesan, one of the best-selling authors we've had in management particularly, he said, my job as an author began after I got published. So as what Ajay is saying, you cannot rely on retail or one channel. As an author, you just simply have to focus on your strength and start slowly building up on that. So Ajay has opened a bookshop to sell his books, by the way.
We'll come here. We have enough time.
One of the great things which you all touched, I mean, Ajay, thanks, the way you curated, that we have Shibani from the reader side to the seller side. One thing, if you see that you go to the bookstore here, it's so crowded, and then the people queuing up for getting the book signed. But I think most of both the sides, I mean, whether it's publishers or the budding content creators, so much of content. I mean, see, trust me, while the discount is there, so if I have to just pick up one thing, how do we do? I mean, it's not just the content part. There is a money involved from publisher side, which one to choose. So the key question, which you all may like to answer, is that how does a reader actually choose the content? Because out there will be a challenge which Shivani is positioning one author, which I like, but there I go, I see something else which has come up, which Ajay you would like to promote, and then I see a discount. Where do you get lost?
So I would just like to answer that in a bit philosophical way. Okay, so I feel it's not you choose the book chooses you. Okay, that's one. Secondly, you tend to. Of course, there are models on Amazon as well, where what you like and they would show, your likes as well. But I feel you can you can always discover a book always in a bookstore. What I've tended and seen and experienced myself over the last 15 years. You always discover a new sort of a book or an author in a bookstore. There's something, spiritual, philosophical about that. And, I feel the lot goes in terms of the author as well, in terms of putting his or her, as to answer your question as well, like the marketing. So for example, I'd heard it from Chetan Bhagat himself. He says, I take 2 years generally for a book. 1 year I write, 1 year I promote. So even for them, initial days, 2010, I recollect Amish, Chetan, they used to come to bookstores. If the book is lying behind, they used to pick it up and, position in the front or in the upper top shelves. So all people like Ravi, Ashwin, they all have done that. I've seen them doing over the years as well, till now. So that's what, that urge, that passion, you also need to be a good marketer, or you hire one like me. Thank you.
I just want to add that word of mouth actually plays the most powerful role in terms of promoting a book. Whether it's a debutant author or someone who's very seasoned, word of mouth actually really helps people discover a book. So there's a set of activities that we do as a publisher that sort of helps our retail of books come through. Making sure that it goes out to a certain set of people who will write on their Facebook pages, etc., has sort of helped. There was a time when there were giant literary magazines in Kerala that did that job, but I think that space has sort of receded because the audience have sort of moved. Gen Z reader, which we are now catering to, looks at it differently. Like, we had this very successful book last year, which Ram Care of Anandi, which sold 3 lakh copies, I mentioned of DS10. We were very happy with the sales, but more importantly, it was a revelation for us, because we suddenly realized that, there's a Gen Z reader that we weren't communicating to. So you take a book like M.T. Vasudev Nayar's Asuravitta, which we completely repackaged this year. So all these books need to connect to another generation, and there's some work that we need to do. Whether it's now telling a social media influencer that, instead of talking and promoting these romance novels, which are much easier for you to convey, we communicate to them saying, this is an interesting book that you need to talk of. There was a book that we published 2 years ago, which was by this guy called Carlos Garcia Ferrar. Now, it's not a popular name until you realize that this is the guy that went with Che Guevara across the whole of South America. So everybody knows Alberto Granado and that little trip they did over summer But then the larger trip they did, which ultimately led Che Guevara to become the sort of revolutionary, we published that book. Now, Motorcycle Diaries is popular, so when the book was there in our shops, our shop managers knew how to convey this. Last year, we had a brilliant set of influencers to whom we narrated the story of what this book is. And the sort of content that they created themselves sort of put out a good word of mouth. Now, Che Guevara is very popular in Kerala. I mean, he's on every single wall in Kerala. So Che Guevara has done his marketing post his death. But now marketing this book requires a larger story. And, you know, these sort of things are activities that we need to do on an individual level for each book. Benjamin's Yellow Lights of Death, everybody knows Good Days. But anybody who has read Yellow Lights of Death in Malayalam will always come back saying, Good Days was great, but this Yellow Lights of Death is a masterpiece. We have to it's been 13 years since it's been published. It's still sold. We recently crossed 1 lakh copies of that book. Wow. We reissued the cover, but we handed it out to a bunch of 22-year-olds recently who got into blogging and stuff. They were mind blown. But the fact is that they didn't know this book existed.
So Aditi, how does this whole dynamic of discovery and recommendations work in the non-English market, like especially the Hindi market that you work in?
So word of mouth, as Govind said, goes a long way. But also social media has helped a lot. We just sent 164th edition of Gunaho Ka Devta to press by Dharamveer Bharti ji. And it's his birth centenary year. And the book was on Amazon number 24. Last time I checked, on 25th January, I think. So I think what we did, so we had a fabulous reception program in Bombay on 16th of January. And everyone from theatre, film industry, literary landscape came and celebrated the book. What really caught my attention was that the books need to be unwrapped again. They need to be open page by page for the readers again. And suddenly, every day on Instagram, we are getting tagged into 22, 25, 26 reels and memes on Gunaho Ka Devta. And there are so many collaboration requests, and the rate is amazing. So this is one of examples. Of course, there are many more. But I think communication with the readers, a solid book club. We have about 69 WhatsApp groups, which are called Vani Pathak Manch. And each WhatsApp group has over, I think, 260 or 270 participants. And they are dedicated to different cities. They are our solid backbone of readers. So one post that goes out on these WhatsApp groups, about a mailing list of about 3 lakh readers, one message that goes out there, and of course, an organic following of over 1.5 million on social media for Vani. It just ensures that one message is read by many. And how many respond to it is a matter of chance, time, placement, 4 Ps that you call it, right?
And can we trust your algorithms? Because, like because there's always this talk, go to a bookseller, a real bookseller, and don't trust the Amazon algorithm. But the fact is, I think most of us, including me, I've taken bought books based on your recommendations that the algorithm throws up, right? So is that a very reliable source of discovery and recommendations?
I think, Ajay, I'll just maybe take a stock on this and address the larger question on discovery. Discovery for any sort of, I would say, content pursuit for humans is a very serendipitous journey, right? It's not very linear. And what we call as word of mouth in today's time and age is amplified 20,000 times because of social media and all those things, right? But I'm saying that in terms of inclusivity, there's a role that each one of the element has to play on it. Like when it comes to social word of mouth, when it comes to consumer reviews, when it comes to algorithms, when it comes to booksellers, it's important for us to know where our strength lies. And just like I said, we can't offer maybe the the pleasure of browsing through the book physically in a store. And we know that we can't do that. And thereby we always say that the existence of blossoms in, like, for example, in Bangalore is beautiful for me because I love spending time over there. But at the same time, what we can offer is a unique bookstore to every individual every time that they come, right? Which is our ability to do that because we are not constrained by real estate, sort of. We are not constrained by a shelf life. We can list a first published book by any author, which can be promoted at ₹1 marketing cost, right? So there is that element of scale that kind of Amazon brings in. And I'm saying, I'm reflecting on the conversation. I heard about the fact that stationery, toys, right? Like, as someone who also sells toys, I know that there is magic in figuring out, depending on the choice of toys for parent, to recommend the right book for their kids. And I'm telling you that algorithm can do like a phenomenal job on that. And we have this whole aspect of what we call as collaborative filtering, where you have to really track the footprint of the consumer through the internet ecosystem. So somebody who's listening to a podcast by William, if he's coming to the site, you need to ensure that you tell him about his books. If somebody is sort of browsing through different kind of video content on Prime Video, you can suggest an Elena Ferrante to that person. And if somebody is like a particular follower of Prajakta Kohli, you have your way to kind of promote a 2 lakh, consumer stream of Prajakta Kohli to them, right? And thereby, if you can use all of those things, and I'm saying you don't have to, again, I'm reflecting to the fact, to compete with every person in the ecosystem. You have to use their strength and bring them through. So all of the people here in the room, if any of you guys say, I want to curate the books for consumers on the ecosystem and list it under my own name, the platform provides that kind of thing, right? An algorithm is a very small part of it, but I'm saying, look at the community of Goodreads, which is also an Amazon-owned proprietary, and see the kind of quality of discussion that ends up happening. And we are completely sort of ignoring the fact that while we are talking of regulation and other things, in terms of how the government should play the role, the urban infrastructure in this country allows very little space for people to take a 1 hour, car ride from Yashwantpur to Blossom and then find a book. And there is pleasure in creating a 24/7, 365-day store that can allow people to do that.
So Shibani, quick one, so because we've got questions. Okay, well, thank you so much for being a part of the panel. Yeah, thank you so much. So I'm just a quick one, and Shibani, give the answer in 3 lines. The community that you have, right? What's the kind of interaction that you have within the community that kind of helps members discover books and get recommendations from each other? And how effective are they, number 1? And number 2, how can Anoop get access to that?
Okay, so I can't answer this in 3 lines. I'll try and do my best to answer it as quickly as I can. See, book recommendations are basically given. We have a reading advisory. We choose books as I told you, the best-selling books. Unfortunately, until now, we were doing that. And those are books which are picked up. But the consistent conversations that we have offline, where we are launching either authors or we're just doing some intelligent conversations with people. We hosted Mr. Siddharth Basu a while ago. We hosted Meenakshi Sheshadri. While they have written no books, they are books by themselves. Their journey speaks volumes. And when people come in for conversations like these, they are invigorating of a certain type, right? And they end up picking, by the way, picking up or reading books because these are suggested by those stars while they're in conversation. That apart, I lead the monthly book reading event that we do, where we select one book and we pick that up. And if they're simpler books for new readers, they end up asking for more recommendations and picking up books from brick and mortar stores. Kunzum is one of our favorites, and we partnered with them. This is where the books get picked up from. And like I said, discounting really isn't the part of it. I think it's the whole experience. When you get into a store, it's the sensorial experience that you feel around a store. There has to be somebody who's recommending a book. I want to add here, and sorry, I'm going to take a little extra time. I've heard of a store where they have a set of loyal customers who only buy from that store. They don't even go online because they have created that impact on the reader. So the moment a reader walks in, and it happens to me as well, I walk into a store, they say, okay, ma'am, aapki kind of books have come. And I've had so many of my readers in my book meet tell me, okay, tell us, now you know what kind of books we read, can you guide us as to what we should read? So it is actually, Ajay, to answer that question, we've been very successful. If we recommend one book, which is our book reading for the month, we also get suggestions and requests, or rather requests for what are the type of books that we can read, simpler books, which a bookstore can suggest. What was the second question, please?
Can Anup be a part of it?
Yeah, everybody can be a part of the Gurgaon Moms Book Club. It's not just for women. I've created a separate WhatsApp group for men. And yes, please, but the only criteria and the condition is that you should read the book and get it along with you. And we prefer that you get the books instead of getting Kindles because it's just easier it's also promoting and helping the bookstores, which we are very passionate about.
Okay, sorry. Okay, we'll just take the question there. Yeah, no, I'm just coming. Yeah.
Hello. Good afternoon. I am from Kandla, Gujarat. Some people know it by the name of Gandhidham. I've been there for more than 22 years. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a single bookstore where we can get either English or Hindi books. A few Gujarati books are available. I am not interested in reading, nor can I read Gujarati. My question is, I have business interests in Kandla, Mundra. I am an avid reader, and in my own way, I am trying to help 4 or 5 of my close friends read books that we mutually enjoy. It sort of took off during the pandemic, even though I was still working because I own a factory and our factory wasn't shut down, but I was somehow managing the book club. Unfortunately, the moment things opened up, the friends sort of, they went away because they were like, koi CA hai, uska ye hai, but I continue to read in my own way. I am very, very keen to set up a bookstore in Ahmedabad, and by that I mean a sensible bookstore where I am willing to be trained and I am willing to keep a couple of people with me to be trained as to how to guide people to buy books. Because Oxford Bookstore opened up in Ahmedabad, got shut down in a matter of months, if not years. Crossword continues to, increase its footprint. No offense to you, sir, but maybe you're a part of Crossword. The people on the shop floor, they cannot recommend books to you. So if Mohit ji or Ajay ji, I hope I've got your names right, if you wish to open a sensible bookstore in Ahmedabad or Baroda, it is my request to make me a part of it. We can discuss the financials on a separate platform.
Yeah, I think taking a cue from what Govind's business model is, I think basically you are kind of nurturing entrepreneurs, right? Because if each of your manager is like working like an entrepreneur, and I think that's are you expanding? Yeah. No, not in a girls, but.
Expansion is subjective. I run just one bookstore, and what I feel is the essence of that bookstore, I'm collaborating. I mean, I'm literally flabbergasted listening to what you just said. 40,000 is a lot of people to manage. Yeah. 42,000, I'm so sorry. And putting all of that together and individually then recommending. I mean, but algorithms are there and all of that, but humanly doing that, it's a different ballgame altogether. So, to answer the question, yes, let's meet.
Yeah, so somebody wanted to ask questions here, the lady here.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'm glad that you chose his question over mine first, because this is actually a very important cause. Secondly, so every second Sunday of the month, I run children's book club at my home. It's a humble book club, and it has a capacity of 10 to 12 children at a time. So they are free to give interpretations of the ending in their own way. They can change the whole plot line according to themselves, so it gets the creative juices flowing. When children join in my book club, they are 5 or 6 years old. But by the time they turn 10 or 11, they have to leave. They don't want to leave because their parents say it's time for textbooks. Do you think we need a book like Harry Potter that brings in the advent, the scalability, the saleability, in which children read only for the pure love of books and not because it brings in excellence, merit, and success?
Fabulous question. Yeah.
So, I feel basically it's also important. Like I'll give you an example of say Scholastic. Okay, so what they had done, primarily they had gone to the schools, they had built up a structure in terms of doing exhibitions at the open houses, they have created a team and they are doing wonders. Now one title which came up out of that and we all would agree and would have sold in numbers is Geronimo Stilton, right? Now just taking cues from that, we will also have to build, of course, castle cannot be built on sand, but we definitely need our own Harry Potters and Geronimo Stiltons. But it is also important, like how sort of at the grassroots level create that. So it is through performances, through skits, through interactive sessions, through workshops. Like say, we in fact have gone to malls and have done so many children's literature fest, like Bargain Book Hut in Bombay, the White Crow, and every Sunday or others there is something or another happening. Now you slowly, it's like, you inject them with that content, which is of course good. The substance is there. It cannot be shallow. So once you try and give that substance to them and they become addicted to it. So there's nothing wrong in terms of giving a good content and then supplementing it on, series or, work after that. So that would be my answer to your question.
So a quick one, we do a lot of school events and we see that the number of books that get sold in the junior school, it kind of tapers off in middle school and it just like almost nothing in the senior school. So I think, because Indians love getting certificates, so we just recently launched a graduate program in reading, right? Yeah, it's a fact. The thing is, it's just been a soft launch. And the deal is that depending on the number of books you read, you'll get a certificate, and then a diploma, then a bachelor's, then a master's, and then a doctorate, starting now, not how many books you've read in the past. So, yes?
Can I quickly add something? One aspect which I'm highlighting at my bookstore, and I request everybody, is the art of browsing. We should encourage children. What happens is many a times parents come with their kids and they are always forcing upon, ye padho. I totally understand as the angst of the child being told what to read. We should just let the child be in the bookstore. Rather turn it around and have the children recommend books to parents. I mean, it will be such a beautiful experience where grown-ups are seen with picture books.
So I think we have time for just one or two questions. I think we'll take the one here and let's take both the questions together and then we'll reply them. Yeah. You have the mic here? Yeah.
Thanks. I think I should congratulate every one of you actually building that community and maybe helping the others actually build that community. From Shibani, I think you're doing a wonderful job, 42,000.
Thank you.
I just want maybe 3 lines, as you said, of how is the logistics of handling 42,000. How do you manage to actually, for example, if you are having a kind of an event, do all 42,000 get kind of an information that the event is there? And then is it kind of you have divided them into factions, or is it one whole club that you actually just deliver that message? And is it a paid club or do they contribute a little bit? Because with the free clubs, what I've seen is that people tend not to come most of the times because it's just taken for granted that the club is going to just run and then they skip most events and once in a while they're just going to come. So they're just kind of 2 or 3 things combined in one.
So we'll just take that question also, so we can just kind of reply to them. Yeah.
Hi, I'm wondering, there was a panelist a few days ago who suggested that distributors end up making the largest chunk of money in the book sale. And they were talking about how retailers and publishers don't make net receipts as much. I'm wondering what the role of distributors, large distributors in India is in terms of how they're impacting the sale of books.
Okay. Do we have any other questions so we can? Okay, I think we'll take that one last question in the middle there.
Yeah, I'm from Calcutta, and it's got a complete street of books, as you know, the College Street. It runs on that old traditional model where there is no how does that sustain itself? Because it's a very big business that goes on there. And I am a medical professor. I come from teaching in a medical college, and we see people reading books. It's not that people don't read books. And people, how do they adjust this sort of business model in today's world? I want to just know about from you, all of you who are such big stalwarts in this.
So, quick answer, Shibani.
Okay, I'll very quickly answer this. So Gurgaon Moms is a 42,000 women's community, as I mentioned, 70% of which lives in Gurgaon. When the communication of an event or a book launch happens, it happens to all 42,000. The offshoot of the Gurgaon Moms space or the community is the book club, all of which is online. It's a Facebook platform, so everybody gets information online. And of course, at the off-ground events, we get about 150 to 200 people, depending on the kind of author or a conversationalist who's coming, or a guest who's coming to stage. But everybody is aware of what's happening in the community. And to answer your question, how do we communicate? It's all online. So we have a Facebook page, we have a Instagram page, and we of course have a LinkedIn page, which is not very, very active currently, but it works very well for us. And if you're launching an author, we consistently, for about over 10 days or over 15 days, talk about the book and the author. And that goes also for books that we want to read for the month. So there is enough marketing that is done online. And it is free to join, but of course only women. And if we do a profile check before we do all of the coming in, registering in, all of that. Yes. But so Anup can join. So when we do offline or off-ground events, we charge a minuscule amount for the reason that we have an RSVP, nothing else really, because we're more interested in books getting sold and the conversations heard. So that's all, yeah. Yeah, thank you. We love
anyone
readers.
quickly wants to respond? If distributors are the only ones making money, you're making money, you're making money, you're making money, I'm not making money.
Well, look, with distributors, I think there is a margin that everybody has to make. With distributors, the challenge of housing so many books so that when something suddenly becomes in demand, moving it through all the channels, so there's that. But I just want to reference how we work as a distributor as well, because there's about 600 or so bookshops that we supply books to. We have a microcredit system, and I'm not going to say that we pioneered it so much as it was the only way it would have worked in Kerala, because pricing of books in Malayalam is completely a different ballgame. A 300-page book sells at 350. It can't be 799, it can't be 999, no matter how big the author is. That's the game. Even for a book that sold 3 lakh copies, it was priced at 399, we never changed a bunch. The way it works is that every big town that we have, our shops sort of have a mini warehouse of its own. You as a bookseller can come to us and take as little as 2,500 rupees worth of books a day. We keep a tab on it. At the end of the month, when you hit a certain threshold, we apply a wholesaler discount to you and you get it. The concept here is that most of the smaller bookshops that actually have good sales could be in a bus stand and a railway station, where they don't want to manage so much inventory. So we say, you don't have to worry about logistics. We don't have to ship the book to your shop. You can come and get as little as 2,500. When they sell, you pay us. But what it means is that a small bookshop owner, like there's an online bookshop based out of Trivandrum called the Kerala Bookstore. Their entire business model is based on the fact that the 2 shops that we have in Trivandrum possibly have copies of the book. So one night, they get all the orders. Next morning, we get a WhatsApp message saying, I need so many copies of this. They take it from us. They sell it. We manage the inventory indirectly, but this is just how it works for us in Kerala. I can't ask, even for a medium-sized bookshop, to commit to taking 3 boxes of books to give you the certain discount we want. It just does not work. But what it means is that the distribution of our books across all the other shops is possible. And it means that there's a lot of cash flow problems that we face. Not every bookshop is able to pay us on time. So when we get a bestseller, and our sales team really pushes for bestsellers, because at that point, everybody clears their dues, because this is a possible sales channel they don't want to miss. But it causes cash flow issues for for us as a distributor.
So yeah, and I think in all these discussions, the street retailer gets missed out, right? So yeah, that's a good point. Anyone has an insight as to how their economics work?
I think you should see their discounting. Go to the street retailers, and then you'll understand.
And it's not just street sellers. They're very big stores, very big stores, and very ancient stores. One of the oldest in India, probably. And they still boast of that old business model. I am not saying it's this newer one is the bad one, it's the better one, obviously. But I'm asking how do they sustain such a big business? Because thousands of people are surviving on it. And they're surviving, they must be making some money. That's the question I have in mind.
So last answer of the day.
I'll just quickly tell you, like each of these retailers that you're talking about has a very specific moat. When it comes to old books, when it comes to curated books, when it comes to their royal customer base, just like Shibani was mentioning, there are stores where only people go buying from that store only. And I'm telling you, like this conversation on the fact of books surviving has been there like in the beginning when Amazon got opened in 95. It was there maybe 100 years ago when radio was launched. But books out-survive each of us. And there is no threat to, just the fact that some people in this world will always find that pursuit to read that one-off book and discover the purpose of their life, right? So they are not threatened by any of the technology.
So parting comments, okay, if there is a seller, there is a buyer. It's going to be there. And Pulkit, as he is also from MICA, I would just like to use the acronym, make it cool again. Okay, so with the children, if we are able, with the new generation, what we are doing in order to, imbibe to them. Second is revive and reproduce in a way where they wanted to make it adaptive. Okay, make it cool again. That's the key.
So we had a library period in school, and it was, I think, about half an hour. And when Mrs. Mohindra was our librarian at that time, and when the half an hour would be over, so we had to come and get the book stamped, she would say, time is over. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The time is over for us. Yeah, but keep reading. And thank you for being such a participative audience. Thank you so much.